Hey, everybody, and welcome to Inside Tiger Football, brought to you by Rib Crib. I'm Adam Hildebrandt, alongside Tiger head football coach David Alexander. Week 1 is in the books, a victory for the Tigers over Bentonville West. And, Coach, the standard question, first show of the year, would be, well, how'd you feel to get back on the field? But we're not going to do that. I'm going to shake it up on you. We're going to start it off kind of a little different. You just won a football game Friday night, late night. I know you're hungry. What's the go-to meal?
What's the go-to? Well, you got to go to Rib Crib. You got to get some sliced brisket, man.
There you go.
That's the ticket.
I could go for some sliced brisket right now. It's almost lunchtime, so we maybe stopping there on my way home. All right, let's talk some football. And since it's high school football, we'll do this in kind of a report card format. We can kind of hand out grades for the team over the course of this week. So top to bottom, game 1. Let's do kind of an overall grade first. What'd you think?
Yeah, an overall grade. I got to give them a high B, right? I was really, really pleased with our substitution patterns, right? I only had to use one timeout for not the right number of people on the field. And those are the time in the first game, without having all the spring games and the team camps. The operational stuff is what you really worry about as a coach. Everybody has mistakes, but we did a really good job. I was really proud of that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the substitution patterns. You had some wonky substitutions kind of later in the game with cramps and various small injuries that guys had to come in. How did you feel like those guys did, those guys that aren't necessarily in the starting lineup but got a lot of playing time, just fitting right into those roles?
Well, the guys that came in as backups, and had to get 4 or 5 plays, they had a lot of growing up to do in a real short amount of time. Overall, I would give probably a low B to those guys. But expectation level-wise, they met or exceeded what the expectation level was. And that's the way it's going to be all season. We're going to have a lot of different faces in the lineups every game.
Let's kind of switch over to the defensive side of the ball. Defense was very good in the first and fourth quarters, didn't give up any points, a little bit of a ripple there in the second quarter. But in particular, the defensive line seemed to step up to the plate. How would you grade that group in their first game under Clarence Hawley?
Man, they did a great job. Those guys, we're asking them to do so much more than what they had done the past few years. We are stunning, and we're twisting, and we're blitzing. They all played fantastically, right? The 2 guys that just pop into my head for really having great football games were Garrett Hinesley and Dakota Tomlinson. Dakota Tomlinson started the game off with a big hit on the quarterback, right, and then had a fantastic effort sack in the fourth quarter. Both those 2 guys really stand out.
You mentioned at halftime of that game Saturday that you wanted to see those guys do a better job of getting to the quarterback, getting there. Did you feel like they did that in the second half?
They did. That young man from Bentonville West, that quarterback number 12, what a fantastic football player. Mm-hmm. It wasn't as hot as it could have been, but it was still very muggy. And he must have run 5 miles, trying to give his offense a chance, and he did a great job. And it took us a while to wear him down. We finally started getting to him from the end of the third quarter all the way through the rest of the game.
You mentioned the stunting and the different things the defensive line is doing this year. The important part about that is if you have one guy who misses a spot or doesn't get to where he needs to be, there's some big gaps, and there weren't a lot of big running plays for them on Saturday. So it seemed like their knowledge of the schemes and what they needed the role they needed to play fit right in. Yeah,
those guys we mentioned, Tomlinson and Hinesley, right, and also Barwig on the defensive line. They're all seniors. So they've done a great job. Bentonville West had the one drive in the second quarter where they ran the ball, and we had some, misfits, as we call it. And, they had that one drive, it was about 90 yards, and went down and scored. But pretty much after that, we slowed them down running the football. The only guy that had any running yards after that was the quarterback on just pure scramble plays.
What about the back 7 on that defense? How'd you grade them?
Well, I would grade the secondary as an A, man. There's a lot of those guys that all played really, really well. You talk Sterling Ramsey and Jadain Wright at safety, Javian Franklin at safety, Jalen Johnson at corner had a great game. But the number one guy in the secondary was Corey Williams. Man, he had such a magnificent football game. He was everywhere. He blocked an extra point. He had an interception. He forced a fumble. He had a big kickoff return. Corey Williams was a superstar last Saturday afternoon.
When you have guys that the ball seems to be magnetized like that to them in a game, when you go back and break down film with them, are they just trying to get back in their own heads? Like I would think that was almost an out-of-body experience for him as much as he was around the football on Saturday.
Well, it goes. No, I don't know about an out-of-body experience. You know, I want to as a coach. I want to say, hey, it was preparation, and he took his preparation. He took his film study and he applied it to the football game. He's a senior. He's played a lot of football games. This is going to be his third year to start varsity football games. So he kind of understands what's going on, and those guys can really slow the game down, right? So they kind of expect the football and know what they're going to do with it.
You mentioned the secondary as a whole had a very good game. I don't recall really any time that there was a big bust in coverage that allowed somebody just running down the field, and that helps let those linemen get to the quarterback.
Yeah, when all those scramble runs by their quarterback was because they're such really good coverage. No, we didn't have anybody running scot-free, and that's a big worry as a head coach when you got a new coordinator and the lack of time we had competing against other teams in the summer because of the COVID situation. So. That's why that secondary they graded out as a very high A. Did a great job.
This is Inside Tiger Football, brought to you by Rib Crib. I'm Adam Hildebrandt, joined by David Alexander. We'll take a short break and be back with more in just a moment.
The Tigers of 1953 had a remarkable year as they finished 7-3 in the Verdigris Valley Conference. The team placed 4 seniors on the All-Star team, including co-captains Robert Ingold and Philip Sparling. The season was capped off with a 40-13 pounding of Pryor as the Tigers unleashed a 304-yard ground assault and a 147-yard aerial attack to win the game handily. This great moment in Tiger history is brought to you by First National Bank of Broken Arrow, a loyal fan of our community for over 100 years. First National Bank of Broken Arrow, the right balance.
Welcome back to Inside Tiger Football, brought to you by Rib Crib. I'm Adam Hildebrandt, joined by BA Tiger head football coach David Alexander. Coach, we've talked about the defensive side of the ball. Let's switch over to the offense now. Right. You guys ran a screen on like play 2 or 3 and Spaff said, I think that's the first screen we've run in 3 years. So just like the defense has been learning new schemes, the offense has as well. So how did you feel like everybody was on the same page on Saturday offensively?
Well, offensively, since there was no real changeover in the staff, Coach Wilkinson's the offensive coordinator, has been doing it now. This is his 4th year here. It was almost a fine-oiled machine, especially for game 1. Your expectation level compared to what your execution level was. Had a fantastic game plan and executed almost every play just the way you wanted to. And obviously not every play, but we had a really good plan. A lot of guys stepped up. Coach Wilkinson kept Bentonville West, off balance. Hitting them with runs when they expect pass, and vice versa. Right, some screen plays. Yeah, it was really fun to watch Coach Wilkinson work Bentonville West over.
Senior quarterback, 2-year starter now, Jake Raines goes 12 for 19, 205 yards, 2 scores, protected the football. You can't ask for much more in a game than that. So let's go back to the report card. How did he grade out?
Jake Raines is solid as a rock, and that's what we need in Coach Wilkinson's offense. We've put more on his plate. Not only is we asking him to protect the football, but he's getting us in the correct run plays. When I say correct, right, Coach Wilkinson's giving him the option of running right and left, getting that checked. He was 100% on those. We've got him and the offensive lineman working on changing protections. Trying to pick up blitzes. Again, I think they missed one in the game, and besides that, he scrambled when he had to. And he's got, of course, it's awesome, right? Some of those receivers he's got out there to throw to, right? Some really, really exceptional football players.
Yeah, they were a step or two away from hitting on a couple real big ones. There was a 42-yard bomb to score in that game as well. Right. So the offensive passing game certainly went well. Now, the O-line and the running backs ran it for more than 260 yards, teamed up to have a very good game. So let's start with those guys up front first. When you went back and looked at film, how are they doing in terms of moving those front seven around for Bentonville West?
Well, if I was going to take each position group, the whole team, and say which one played the best, it would have been the offensive line. And it's simply because not one of those guys had ever started a football game before, right? So you got 5 brand new starters, never started a game. Man, they were really good. We had a couple protection busts. Those are communication things. We had a couple run game busts. But if you take 5 guys plus a fullback times 60 plays, and they played a fantastic football game.
You mentioned the communication, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize, how much communication takes place on the offensive line before the snap. How challenging was it? And we've talked about this before, but you haven't played against anybody, so they're familiar with their own defensive looks.
Sure.
How challenging is that communication in a situation like that where you really haven't had to do that at all?
Well, it's challenging when you've got guys that have started football games and they're comfortable starting football games, but much less a new group. So you got to give those guys a ton of credit. Going up there, trusting what Coach Harper and Coach Broyles have taught them, and just getting their plays right. And then, we don't do anything as an offensive line that is single, right? You're never, I'm just going to do this by myself and no one else is going to affect what I do. No, it all has to be in concert. And they did a really, really good job. And the numbers, our statistics bear that out.
Marion Horn, Sanchez Banks both ran the ball well. Horn busted a couple of big runs in that game. It seemed like both of them showed the patience necessary to allow those blocks to develop up front. So what do you think of those two guys?
Well, I don't know if we have enough time, Adam, really, right? They're special kids. Sanchez Banks is going to be, when I write my book, he's going to be a whole chapter. And I was extremely proud of the growth he showed. Okay, we all know from last year seeing his ability, right? But he did a few things that don't show up to the naked eye unless you're watching the game tape, that were exceptional. So really, really proud of Sanchez. And Marion, even though he started a bunch of games for us last year, that was his first time to start on offense, and we kind of know what kind of exceptional talent he is. His speed really showed out. And he's just got some God-given abilities that most people don't have.
Especially a couple of those times the lineman washed the defensive lineman out of the way. He just had a straight line, and once he gets out of the stride,
there was a couple of them that were just 60-yard sprints. But the speed, right? It's great to get the offensive line knocks down, for that first 6 or 7 yards. But then, the ability to just outrun everybody on defense. That's God-given.
You're watching Inside Tiger Football, brought to you by Rib Crib. We'll be back with one final segment here in just a moment.
Recently, you've had to put your life on hold, and we're with you in this. At Ascension St John, we're now open for appointments, and we are fully prepared for your safety and our care. As we open our doors again, our doctors, nurses, and care teams will continue to wear personal protective equipment. We've taken even more steps to clean and stringently disinfect all areas. We will maintain distancing in our waiting rooms, and will continue to limit visitors. And we will still screen all staff to protect their health and yours. Our emergency rooms are here 24/7. Please do not delay care. We're still delivering babies and performing surgeries. And we're open for your appointments, from specialists and surgical care to routine care and health screenings. Ask us about virtual visits. Ascension St John continues to care for you, as we have been for almost a century. Thank you for trusting us.
Welcome back to Inside Tiger Football, brought to you by Rib Crib. Adam Hildebrandt, David Alexander with you. Coach, really a dominant game in all three phases against Bentonville West on Saturday. The special teams came up big in a lot of ways. There was a block kicked, a lot of good kick returns as well. Was there anything in particular that stood out to you from the special teams effort on Saturday?
Well, the best thing for me, for Coach Alexander, is we didn't use any timeouts, right? That's usually where you see substitution problems, because it was hot, and we also had to, we had to substitute some guys out. we kicked off enough times that we got some guys that are on the starting defense that we needed to get off, and because they were tired. I thought the kickoff team was fantastic. The protection on the punt team, which is always the big worry, was really good. We missed an extra point, and we had a shank punt. Again, new kicker Mason Garrett and punter Seth Dodd, their first time to ever do it. So it's something that's going to happen. But our kickoffs were fantastic, right? We had several touchbacks. Kickoff return team was fantastic. Almost every time we got the ball out, almost to midfield. So that, again, very proud of the execution of the football team for a Week 1 football game.
You mentioned Dodd's first game punting. His first punt rolled inside the 10-yard line of the opponent. How important was that to establish field position in what was a low-scoring first quarter?
Well, I can't tell you how important that is, right? Field position early in a ball game is everything, and it's even more so the first half of the season. It's very, very difficult for a high school football team to go on a 90-yard drive. Right? It's hard to put 12 or 13 plays together without having a mistake, a drop pass or a holding or any mistake. So you put the other team inside the 10-yard line. You're probably going to flip the field and you're going to get the ball back at your own 35, 40, 45-yard line.
You lost one fumble last week, saved a couple of others. Just first game jitters, or is that something that's more of a concern?
Well, we're not going to call it a concern yet. Ball security is job security. That's one of Coach Alexander's famous quotes. I think probably every running back and receiver's heard me say that a couple hundred times. And so, as we talk about it, we practice it. Both running backs, both Sanchez and Marion had a fumble. We got Marion's back. Actually scored a touchdown on that, which was kind of a cool play. But both those not the most concerning, but one of the concerning things is both those are in the red zone right there. Both those fumbles, and the Sanchez's. We were really about to maybe kind of spread the game apart and kind of maybe explode on Bentonville West, but they fumble, we fumble, they get the ball, they feel new life.
Absolutely. 7 penalties, but only for 37 yards on Saturday. First game, obviously nobody likes penalties, but was that acceptable enough in a first game context?
Well, I'm only worried about penalties that happen before the snap and post whistle, right? Those are the ones that bother Coach Alexander. Any penalties that happen during the play, most of those you can't control, most of them, right? There's times a holding call happens, right? The ball carrier goes the wrong way, or the quarterback scrambles and a holding happens, right? Or a pass interference, right? They happen. An underthrown pass, a corner or safety runs into the receiver. Those are just happening in the game. So the pre-snap penalties, right? The illegal motions or the delays of games, right? Those are ones we can control. And we only had 2 of those, right? And they're both on the defense. We didn't have any post-whistle penalties, right? No being silly and hitting late or talking trash and getting a penalty. So the penalties that we can control, we did a pretty good job of that.
That's Broken Arrow head coach David Alexander. Back to break down the Union Redskins a little bit when we return in just a moment.
Finding your happy place is something special, and it's different for everyone. You probably already know where to find yours, and TTCU Federal Credit Union can help you get there. Right now, you can earn up to a $200 bonus when you open a new checking account with direct deposit. So wherever your happy place finds you, TTCU will meet you there. TTCU Federal Credit Union. Life is better in balance.
Welcome back to Inside Tiger Football, brought to you by Rib Crib. Adam Hildebrandt, David Alexander with you as we look ahead to Friday's matchup against Union. Rivalry matchup, Union defeated by Bixby a week ago. But what have you seen in your study of the Redskins so far this week?
Well, it's a typical Union Redskin football team. Speed. They're going to put a track team out there. Their tailback, A.J. Green, is the fastest kid in the state of Oklahoma in 6A. He's won the 100-meter track, got got the fastest track time in the 100 meters in the state in 6A. You know, he can really, really run, and that scares you. Quarterback-wise, you know, last year they brought in Rovon Banks the second half of the season, and he won a whole bunch of games. And when we played him in the first round of playoffs last year, he had 240 yards rushing against us. So he can really run. And scrambling quarterback and a tailback that's that fast are huge weapons. You know, they've got a couple tall receivers that, you know, will be mismatch problems for us. And then defensively, you know, Coach Frederick, he's run the defense over there for a long, long time, and he knows what he's doing. You know, we will not be able to get them out of position by shifting or motion. You know, they're going to line up sound. So everything we get out of our offense will be earned this week. There won't be any gifts given to us by the Union football team.
With that speed that they have on offense, what does that do? What kind of onus does that put on the defense in terms of making sure that you are where you're supposed to be 100% of the time?
Yeah, you know, you've got to, well, not only you have to be there every time and in the right gap and make the running back bounce, but these are guys that you don't tackle with one guy tackling with one hand. We got to be running the football. You know, we need to be 2 and 3 guys there at every time to tackle him. When they catch the ball out in the flat, they're going to throw it out in the flat a bunch. We've got to rally and run and understand our angles and limit those plays. If they're an 8-yard play or an 8-yard catch, we got to limit them to 8 to 10 yards. Right? We can't let them turn an 8-yard catch into a 30-yard, 40-yard run.
That's Broken Arrow head football coach David Alexander. Broken Arrow and Union coming up Friday on Arrow Vision. Look forward to bringing that one to you. Thanks for tuning in to Inside Tiger Football, brought to you by Rib Crib. Talk to you on Friday.